You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
So City of Portland this past weekend adding some additional of their specialty teams to the streets of Portland because I think we had 7 shootings within almost a 24-hour period. And over the past month, in the first month of 2022, Portland had almost 100 shootings. So on par with 2021's record-setting trend, where they had 1,200 shootings, and I think, was it 90 murders? Something like that. I mean, just some astounding numbers. So what are the mechanics going on in Portland right now that boots on the ground officers, what are they actually doing? What are city officials having them do? With what limited resources Portland has right now? Because we know how the whole defunding the police and how many police officers quit Portland, retired, lateral moves, all of that. We know they're super low on police officers, just like Seattle is here. So what are they doing? That's what we're going to be talking about today on an ongoing basis. What are they actually doing to help stem this flow of shootings and violence and just general mayhem? So that's what we're going to talk about. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies, and I read the news from that perspective. All right, here we go. Hey, one of the things I wanted to talk about super quick was I mentioned last week that I wasn't sure how much a $5,000 bonus to an existing police officer at any given precinct or bureau. So, hey, I want you to stay on board. Here's a $5,000 bonus. Does that help out with kind of where you're at? And last week I was kind of questioning, $5,000, these guys make pretty good money, or they make really good money with overtime, but they're working for it too, guys and gals. And so does $5,000 move the needle? And my initial thought was not that much, but here's where I think I went wrong. And so I reached out to Officer Friendly, who I have many, many conversations with online. And Officer Friendly will always remain anonymous. And there are many Officer Friendlies. I just happen to deal with a handful. And I get so much information because I'm a business guy. I don't really know public safety. And it's odd. I often think to myself, it is really weird that in 2021, I know so much about kind of the inner workings of some of this stuff going on. Whereas I spent the last 52 years of my life not really having a clue. And I was okay with that. And it's the fact that I need to know this stuff because this stuff is really impacting society today. In 2022, we've got record levels of violence going on. And so you kind of need to know, all right, well, we don't have enough cops here. The FBI numbers for this department are this, and we've got this. So, not good. All right, what's going on down in Portland? Well, we need this many deployable officers and we don't have them. So what are we doing? And, what are the different things going on? It's crazy that we're aware of this kind of stuff, right? We shouldn't be, we just shouldn't have to be, we shouldn't be aware of this stuff. It should be one of those things where public safety kind of happens and we don't really think about it. The police do their thing. And yet we are forced, if you're looking at the harsh reality of what we're dealing with and what police officers are dealing with within these communities and how low their numbers are, if you look at that and you start following that, then you're like, oh, wow, yeah, this is not good. And that's the general consensus. This is not good. And this is what happens when you defund a police department or you defund multiple police departments. Or this is what happens when city officials don't have the police officers' backs and they quit en masse and they retire and they do lateral moves to other departments. So in Seattle, we've been talking about, or the mayor has been talking about offering a $5,000 bonus to existing police officers. And I said, is that really going to do much? I was questioning. I didn't really know. And so Officer Friendly reached out and said, yes, that will impact things positively from the standpoint of if you're a police officer, say you've got 10, 15, 20, 25 years experience, and you've got these rookie cops coming on and getting $10,000 bonuses. And then you've got these police officers coming in from other cities, and they're getting $15,000, $25,000 bonuses, and you've been in your same department doing your job loving working in the city that you work in all these years and you don't get anything, at least a $5,000 bonus is a step in the right direction. I don't think, and from the standpoint of can't give a massive bonus to everybody. Say we bump that up to 15 grand. Well, that triples the budget for this. And at 5 grand in Seattle, if they do this, can you imagine the peaceful protesters? They're not going to be happy. And you know what? We don't care, because keeping skilled veteran police officers is way more important than what these knuckleheads have to say as far as, defund the police, without having anything really lined up along those lines. Yeah, we want to defund the police and we want to reimagine and rethink things, but we don't really have an alternative in place at the moment. So we're going to need to get back to you on that. And, that's how so much of the defunding of the police happened. Departments got defunded. There was no real mechanism in place to take the place of all the officers that were lost. And now in Portland, you've got record-setting, violence numbers, and it looks like 2022 is going to be no exception. Is not going to be an exception. Is going to be no exception. Yeah. You know what I mean? So this is what we're looking at. Much of the same. I said that at the end of 2021, I was like, things have been so bad in Portland as far as the gun violence that I've kind of ignored it for a few weeks, hoping that it goes away. Well, that hasn't happened. So let's take a look and see what we got going on. Cause we do have some positive things, I think, happening. But I'm the glasses half full kind of guy anyway. So maybe I'm wrong, but I want to be able to point to something and go, all right, at least we have that happening. So Portland police officers add officers this weekend after latest wave of shootings. Now they didn't add new ones, but they are adding some members from an additional team. And that's what we're going to talk about. There have been nearly 100 shootings in Portland so far this month. As of last Saturday afternoon, Portland police responded to 92 shootings so far. Now, they had 1,200 last year, so we are on par for the same exact results as last year, and that was not good. More than 24 people have been injured and 7 people have died. That includes a man who was shot and killed early Friday morning in Old Town. The numbers are staggering. They are disappointing, but not entirely unexpected. Why would this go away? We hear a lot about, the gun violence has escalated due to COVID, due to people experiencing economic loss. Like, okay, and I understand that. I get that. But now we've got a labor shortage. So if people want to get a job, they can. So I don't think you can blame that entirely on where we are within the economy, right? You got inflation going on, and that upsets people. All right, I get that. But if you need a job, you can go get a job. Everybody's hiring. So there's that. And yet people are still continuing to shoot at each other and kill each other. See, what you're hearing more of is the gang narrative, right? That's what I'm rating. That's what I've been seeing. If you see something different, let me know. So, but it's, this surge in violence is not entirely unexpected because this is where we're going over the course of last year. So why would it all of a sudden, it's 2022. You guys put your guns down. We're not shooting each other anymore. We're going back to knives. I mean, that's literally one of my thoughts, right? Is when I was a kid, you had a lot more knife fights because if you used a gun in an assault, you were going to jail. You'd be going to jail for a while. And half the time, maybe way more than half the time, these guns are stolen. All right, possession of a stolen firearm and you shot somebody, you're going to do some time. Not these days, right? It's like, oh, okay. Well, we know you've got goodness down deep inside your heart. We need you to find that place. So I'm going to set you free. You need to go and work on yourself and come back for a hearing in, days. And they don't show up. And then there's a warrant out for the rest. And then, district attorney just lets them go. Just city attorney lets them go. Just Yeah. As a result of the shooting over the past few days, the Portland Police Bureau are putting more resources on the street this weekend. So this is what they're doing. Okay, what are they doing? Some of the additional officers belong to the newly established Focused Intervention Team, while some from the Enhanced Community Safety Team. So the Focused Intervention Team, that is the Gun Violence Reduction Team 2.0, I believe. And if I'm getting my terms incorrect, that's because I'm getting my terms incorrect and I don't. I have researched this, but there's a lot of these terms here going on and exactly what they do. The Focused Intervention Team, I believe they go out to a site and deal with the on-site mechanism of investigating the actual shootings. The Enhanced Community Safety Team, they follow up on the shootings, I believe, the investigation part, right? Don't show me if I'm wrong, a messenger. I'm trying. So it's the first time the two teams have combined for a weekend of patrols. So we got rid of the Gun Violence Reduction Team because we were defunding police in general. And it just seemed like such a brilliant idea that more is better. And we did a lot of that. And then now we're here where, you know what? More isn't better. Let's put the band back together. We got the Focused Intervention Team, and then we've got, which is, I want to say 3 sergeants and 12 officers, and the Enhanced Community Safety Team is 2 sergeants and 12 officers. So I might have got those two flipped, but something along those lines. So the officers are working overtime. So the added resources are not here for the long term. And so much of this is, we're gonna make up for the difference with overtime. Now, overtime tends to burn people out. That's just what happens, right? So how much overtime can these officers work? Apparently a lot, but it's not a solution. You need some more police officers in there because you can't afford to lose more towards burnout or, have somebody just, I need to take a break for a while. I mean, and there's with the issues that police officers handle, that is a real thing, just mental. I mean, you imagine you're out dealing with these, issues of gun violence and homelessness and, not trying to step on a needle or poop on your daily job. Stressful, right? And dealing with people that are mentally just not there, that are checked out, that should be in a mental institution somewhere or should be medicated, but you can't force people to do anything anymore. It's, it's just where we are. So this is not something that we can sustain as far as having both of these teams out there. Our staffing issues are well known, and that's not going to change for a while. And it's going to take a long time to get these officers back. It's going to take years and years and years to make up for the experience lost by all these retirements. And there's going to be a bunch more retirements. I mean, I've read the numbers on that and it's like, oh, that's not good. That's not headed in the right direction. But, what do you tell a police officer? How do you get them to continue and stay on? Do you offer them a $5,000 bonus? I don't know. How do you do it? Maybe is a question. Because as the general public, we're like, we'd like some more police officers. That'd be good. But then you have the very, very vocal, peaceful protesters who said another line. And I'm not really going to worry about them anymore because look how that worked out. How did that work out? Reading a story about, and I'm not sure if I'll do the podcast or not, about how one of the groups was presenting some memos, 3 different memos to Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan during CHOP. About handing over the police station to Black Lives Matter, Seattle's King County. Now, Black Lives Matter didn't really know anything about this, but they thought they'd take a run at it anyway and have the conversation. It was so ill-conceived and so ill thought out. And the whole Mayor Durkan and her texts being lost and a couple of kids getting murdered, black kids getting murdered in CHOP. I mean, that whole thing was just such a train wreck. Then it made worldwide news. Yeah, crazy, right? So let's get back to Portland here. So for the last 4 years, Raymond Lusk has lived in Cully neighborhood. A few nights ago, the gun violence came within blocks of his home. He heard gunshots and later found out that they came from shots fired at a convenience store nearby. No one was injured, but police recovered the gun not far from the shooting and made an arrest in the case. The incident sparks a strong emotion in Lusk. Fear. I mean, stray bullets coming through the house and killing people. We've had a lot of buildings shot up in this town and it appears to be getting worse every month. You read heartbreaking stories about like a 3-year-old kid taking a bullet while he's sleeping in his crib. Just stuff like that you're like, oh, that's just horrible. So Lusk wants to see some long-term plans to deal with the gun violence and believes those plans need to come from city leaders. Well, I think most of us that are reasonable, we believe that as well. Need to get going, whatever we're doing. It sounds like we've got these teams going again, which I was happy to see that because we didn't have that before. And it was like, all right, this is not the political climate to be doing that. And yet when your violence numbers are just going through the roof, you're like, okay, so what do we do here? All right. Well, the band is back together as far as the one team, right? The focused intervention team. Portland police say they understand people are frustrated and they want to be part of the solution. I don't think the police have ever not wanted to be part of the solution. I think they were vilified. And we are literally living through the results of how that has gone. It's not gone well. And why do I talk about this so much on a real estate podcast? Well, because nobody else is, because they don't want to admit that public safety is being threatened by the lack of police officers in these given communities. So there's that. Right? I mean, so let's talk about it. Let's have the conversation. And that's what I do on an ongoing basis. So Portland records 7 shootings within 24 hours. That's not a good headline. That's not what we want to see. We want to see no shootings, but you can't put your head in the sand and ignore this stuff and, maybe it'll go away. Talking about ignoring stuff and hoping it goes away. How about down in LA, SoFi Stadium, where they're going to play the Super Bowl in a couple of weekends? Just clearing out the homeless people left and right. Yeah, we're not really doing a sweep here. Get your stuff out. Literally, they've got, the hazmat team goes in with their suits and just starts clearing out stuff. So it appears that when LA needs to get something done, they do. Johnny on the spot, and they get done pretty quickly. I remember the whole Venice Beach thing. The sheriff came in and he's like, yeah, we're clearing this out. And then, who was it? I think the mayor and city council members got really worked up. Oh, you're overstepping your boundaries. Yeah, well, the sheriff was going to get stuff done, right? New sheriff in town. And so when it comes to, we've got how many millions of tourists coming in, or however many hundreds of thousands it is for the Super Bowl. We got this many people coming in for the Super Bowl. We better start cleaning stuff up. So at least along the main arterials and main roads, that's what they're cleaning up. So silly. It's like, how about you need a long-term approach for this instead of just for a weekend? Because those tents are going right back. They're going right back. The minute the Super Bowl is over, they're going right back in. It's just so. Coin 6 reported that within the last 24 hours between Thursday and Friday afternoon, there were 7. This is not even the weekend. There were 7 reported shootings in Oregon's largest city. So far this year, there have been 89 shootings, 21 people have been injured by gunfire, and 7 people have been killed in Portland. Okay, so 7 times 12, 84. And I think Portland did they have 90 last year, or was that 69, 90 murders total? I can't remember. Of the shootings on Thursday and Friday, at least one person died. This is just ongoing, right? So in 2021, the city recorded 90 homicides amid a surge in gun violence, shattering the city's previous high of 66, set more than 3 decades ago. But I don't think those were all due to gun violence, but I want to say 70 something of them were. So just, nutty. I'm going to read this last paragraph here in this article. City police and officials say last year's increase, which disproportionately impacted Portland's Black community, was fueled by gang-related arguments, drug deals gone awry, and disputes among homeless people. In addition, the situation was exacerbated by the pandemic, economic hardships, and mental health crises. All right. People didn't have access to the same, services that they did pre-pandemic, but I think we're getting back to more of that. It's just that our gun violence numbers are elevated. Will that get brought down as more services become available and as more teams are out on the street? Will people be less likely to take out a gun and shoot one another? Well, that kind of remains to be seen, right? So Portland's approach right now is basically you're going to send in a couple of these teams hitting the streets, but they are coming off of overtime or they are being pulled away. Officers that are on these special teams, they're being pulled away from their daily tasks, right? So it's not like you've got an extra team sitting around of 15 people sitting around going, not a lot to do today. Oh, we've got some shootings. Let's go. No, these are police officers that have different job descriptions on the daily. And then when it comes time, they get pulled in to these shootings because that's their deal. All right. So today, the Portland Police Bureau is announcing the formation of the Enhanced Community Safety Team. This is an old article, and I just want to read what it is. At the direction of Mayor Wheeler, Mayor Ted doing something. Portland Police Bureau is implementing this plan to address gun violence in our city. The Enhanced Community Safety Team is an investigative team which falls under the investigations branch of Portland Police Bureau. It's comprised of 3 sergeants. So did I get that? I did get that wrong before. I said 2. It's 3. 3 sergeants, 12 officers, and 6 detectives that will focus full-time on the investigation of shootings. Okay, so this team focuses full-time. This is their deal, right? They'll focus full-time on the investigation of shootings. And then let's go to the focus intervention team. That consists of 12 officers and 2 sergeants. They're required to do 65 hours of training before stepping into their new roles. And they focus on, let me scroll down here. The FIT team will be focused on responding to shooting scenes and apprehending suspects. Team members also underwent training for treating gunshot victims and tactical training for situations such as traffic stops, emergency entries, and clearing buildings. All right. So does that make sense as far as, all right, we've got a couple of different teams. One's dedicated full time, sounds like. Another is dedicated. I believe they are volunteer on the focus intervention team. They volunteer to be on that team, got to take some extra training. And so then their tasks are literally apprehending suspects, shooting scenes, gunshot victims, traffic situations, tactical training for traffic stops, emergency entries, and clearing buildings. So there you go. So you've got some different officers doing some different things now, but most of that, from what I can tell, reading between the lines, is just a reinvention of teams we had before that we called something different. And, we're putting the band back together. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. So the band back together, but probably slightly tweaked because it seems like everything with public safety gets tweaked these days. It's like, oh, you used to be able to do that. Yeah, no, not so much. I probably wouldn't do that, if I were you, because you don't want to be that first officer going to court, going to trial and testing out how the new law applies to how you do to your day-to-day job. So there's that whole thing. And so, there's just a lot of issues with how police are able to respond to things. And the thing that I keep going to is, well, if I was a cop, probably hang back and not really get myself involved because, I'm going to go ahead and test the law here and see the day-to-day application, see how this goes. And, I really believe that a judge is going to side with me if I come across as having done something not quite the way that the law has been interpreted. I'm just going to, I'm a go-getter and I just want to test this theory out. Said no cop ever. You know what I mean? That's just not a wise thing to do. So the police officers are going to go to what I call the lowest common denominator of their actions out in society, out in the field. And that means they may not apprehend somebody that they can't convince that they need help. They're not going to, do certain stuff. You're not going to help out with people that are crazy, that are doing stuff that don't agree, with what the police are telling them that they probably should do. They're going to hang back and just kind of see how things go. And, that opens things up to people getting hurt. And that's kind of the whole point. Here in Seattle, I think we've got an emergency, some emergency legislation so that police can actually apprehend criminals that are not criminals, but suspected criminals, based on, a set of legal circumstances. So right now, you almost have to be on top of the criminal, watching them, do whatever it is they're doing before you can go after them. You don't have the ability to run after them like you used to. And so this is how the police have interpreted this. And I don't really blame them. I'm like reading the description, reading through the law and the municipal code, whatever it is, and going, I wouldn't probably test that theory either, because it's your job on the line, right? So there's that. So we've got some changes going on, but they're, from my perspective, they are things that the police departments used to have before, teams they used to have before. We're putting them back out there because these teams got basically destroyed during the whole defund the police thing. And now we're refunding the police, and we're kind of going full circle. Oh yeah, we might be good if we had some more police officers. How much bonus do we need to give? 25 grand is the most I've seen for a lateral move from a police officer coming in from another one, an experienced police officer. But if you're an experienced police officer, are you really going to do a lateral move to like Portland or Seattle? I don't think so. I mean, I don't see that happening. And I've reached out to folks that I know, and I'm like, is that really going to happen? And Portland just did a big, hey, we know you're retired, but we'd love to have you back. Out of 80 something officers that fit the criteria for the high ups in the police department in Portland, only 2 out of 80 something, maybe it's like 82 or 83 officers that are eligible to come back, and, they're trying to re-recruit somebody that retired. Only 2 showed some interest in wanting to come back, and they didn't sign up that I know of. It's not even a storyline. It's like 2 were like, yeah, well, how much? What are we talking here, guys? What are we talking, guys and gals? How much for me to come back? They're talking, just talking. And not like, okay, yeah, let's do up a contract. I'll come out of retirement, because why wouldn't I want to? Because they left behind an absolute shit show is why. So, a little bit of money offered to those folks, it's probably not going to go that far, because retired police officers, would you want to step back in and deal with some of the nonsense here? All right. Yeah. We're getting rid of that team. We're getting rid of that team. We're cutting your budget. And the people that you do arrest, well, most of them we're going to let go, because we believe that deep down inside, they're good people, and we want to give them their 67th chance, because that, first 66 convictions, we think that things really got overshot, and this person isn't really representing the, society in whole. So we need them to have yet another. Why would a cop go back to that? I don't know. And there are some, I'm sure, that will go back, but I don't know why they would. But a $5 grand bonus, Seattle Police Department, is that going to become a thing? Maybe it does. Hey, $5 grand, you commit to us to be on board for at least the next year, at least the next 2 years, whatever it is, because there's a bunch more retirement police officers retiring, right? We know that. We know those numbers are coming. So then it's going to be like, oh, geez, we just lost another 50 police. Oh, what are we down to now? Okay. Not good. Not good. Because when that one big event happens, the emperor's wearing no clothes. That will be that moment. And you'll be like, ooh, yeah. Need to hire some more cops. That's bottom line. All right. And I know we're working on it, but it can't come anytime soon. Too soon, right? That's it for me on this one. I hope I didn't butcher too much of that police information. If I did, let me know in the comments. Reach out to me, Sean at SeattleRealEstatePodcast.com, because I'm always looking to correct mistakes and stuff, and I make them all the time. Something about Baltimore the other day, somebody was really worked up about, and they said that I just podcast to hear my own voice, which isn't true because I don't listen to my own podcasts. It's awkward. It's like, oh, tell that guy just to be quiet. Thanks again for being here. We'll catch up soon. Talk then. Bye for now.